My name is Nora Hayes. I'm 33 and I'm a hospice nurse. On the afternoon of my wedding, I stood beside a rustic cake table in a restored barn and counted 4 empty chairs in the front row. Small white cards sat on the seats, Dad, Mom, my sister Jenna, my best friend Becca. All 4 were 20 miles down the road at Jenna's engagement brunch, an event my mother had deliberately scheduled for that exact same Saturday. As my new husband Liam slid his hand over mine on the knife, my phone buzzed against my hip. A text from Mom, "Call me immediately." Seconds later, the missed calls began stacking, first one, then another, until the screen glowed with 32 unanswered rings. I didn't pick up. I fed Liam a bite of lemon honey cake. I kissed him, and we danced. And what none of them knew, what they'd refused to look at for 3 years, was that a manila envelope in a county filing cabinet already held my signature and a claim on the very property they were toasting. Welcome back to Tranquil Drama Stories. If you've ever been the person who holds everything together but never makes the guest list, stay with me. Please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you've been the invisible fixer. Now, let me explain how those 4 empty chairs finally told the truth my family couldn't. To understand the empty chairs, you have to understand who I was in my family. I'm the one you call when the water heater bursts at midnight. I handled Dad's pharmacy runs, the property tax bills nobody else opened, the midnight phone calls that meant something had gone wrong. In my work, I sit with people in their last weeks, and I've learned that families reveal themselves in the hard moments. In my family, I was the hard moment they never looked at. Jenna, my younger sister, was the celebration. That was simply the weather in our house. I was the scaffolding. She was the view, and I'd stopped expecting the sun to turn my way. 3 years ago, that dynamic got tested in the worst way. My father, George, suffered a massive heart attack and lay in the ICU, monitors beeping around him. While he was still fighting, a letter came from the bank. The farm, my grandfather's 20 acres of gravel road and old oaks, was 90 days from foreclosure. My parents had quietly been drowning for 2 years. The amount to bring everything current, including legal fees, was $85,000. I was 30 years old. I had $73,000 in a savings account I'd built one double shift at a time since nursing school. I took out a $12,000 personal loan on top of it. I sat in the hospital parking garage, staring at the concrete wall, the smell of antiseptic still on my scrubs, and in 4 minutes I made the decision to save the farm. It was my grandfather's land. My father lay 2 floors up, unable to lift his right hand. I couldn't watch them lose the one thing that had outlasted everything else. But a few days earlier, I'd overheard something that froze me. I was in the supply closet at the hospital, reaching for sterile gauze, when I heard my mother's voice, just outside. She was on the phone with my aunt. "Once George is back on his feet, we'll refinance the farm. Jenna is going to need help with a wedding. A house, she can't do it on her own like Nora." She was already planning to leverage the farm, my sacrifice for Jenna's future. I stood there, hand on a shelf of bandages, and felt the floor tilt. So before I handed over the money, I called a lawyer, Ellen Park. She drew up a promissory note and helped me record a lien against the property. My parents signed it in the fog of crisis, barely reading. The lien meant the farm could not be sold, transferred, or gifted unless that $85,000 debt was settled. I felt guilty, even cold, but I filed it. Then I buried the papers in a cardboard box that moved with me from apartment to apartment, unopened for 3 years. Fast forward to the spring of my engagement. Liam and I planned a small wedding at a vineyard barn, string lights, a borrowed quilt, hay bales. I mailed real invitations with ribbon and drove out to the farm myself to hand deliver one to my parents. Mom was on the porch with her ever-present binder. She barely glanced at the envelope before setting it on top of a stack of Jenna's party plans. "Jenna's Tyler has family coming in," she said, not meeting my eyes. "His mother wants a proper celebration." I saw her not write down my wedding date in that binder, the binder where she wrote everything. The old familiar cold settled in my chest. My father sat in the corner with a blanket over his knees, still recovering, and when I said hi, he nodded at the railing but didn't meet my eyes. A few weeks later, Mom called me at the hospital. "Jenna's engaged." She sang, and I could hear the joy through the phone. Then she added, "We're thinking of a little party. You'll understand, Nora, a wedding is just a day. Real family shows up when it counts." I stood in that supply closet again, antiseptic in the air, and didn't answer right away. She was telling me exactly where I ranked. My wedding was a party. Jenna was the family headline. I said I had to get back to a patient, which was true. I hung up and walked out to hold a dying man's hand. His own daughter hadn't visited in 10 days. I thought, you don't get these afternoons back. Then, a cousin texted me a screenshot of Jenna's engagement brunch invitation. The date was my wedding day. The time was an hour before my ceremony. I called Mom, keeping my voice flat. "Mom, Jenna's party is the same day as my wedding." She let out a long sigh. "Oh honey, it was the only weekend Tyler's parents could fly in. We couldn't split the family 2 ways. It wouldn't be fair to make people choose." As if I were the one forcing the choice. I said, "Okay, Mom. I hope it's a beautiful party." She brightened instantly. "You're being so mature about this." I hung up before I could laugh, because if I laughed, I might not stop. That night, Liam found me at the kitchen table moving names around the seating chart. He asked if I wanted to move the date. I thought about folding myself smaller yet again, proving I could bend. Then I said no. If they wanted to come, they would. If they didn't, I needed to hear the answer clearly. We pulled 4 chairs off the chart, then put them back on purpose. "Leave them," I said. "Let the chairs say what needs to be said." That decision felt like setting down a suitcase I'd carried so long I'd forgotten my arm could hang straight. My best friend Becca, my maid of honor, called a week later about the final dress fitting. Her voice had a pause in it that I recognized. "About that," she started, "I might have a conflict." She danced around it until I pressed. Finally, she admitted my mother had called her and recruited her for Jenna's party. "I didn't realize it was the same day," she said, the words thin as paper. I told her I had to go. I didn't cry, I'd saved my tears for things worth crying over, but I sat in the bridal shop parking lot a long time, adding up who would actually be in the room when I said my vows. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I found myself in the spare room, opening that old cardboard box. Inside was the envelope labeled "Farm Important" in my handwriting. I slid out the promissory note, the recorded lien, and a smaller envelope I'd completely forgotten. It was a letter from my grandfather, written the year before he died. I read only the first line. "Land doesn't go to the one who's loved most, it stays with the one who keeps it alive." My heart thumped. I put everything back and held the envelope against my chest in the dark. I didn't know how, but I felt those papers were about to speak louder than any wedding toast. Saturday came gold and cool. The barn was draped in fairy lights, hay bales covered with quilts. My hospital friends filled 2 whole rows, nurses who'd traded shifts to be there. The 4 empty chairs sat in the front row, name cards facing forward like quiet accusations. During the vows, I glanced at them and my throat closed for a second. But then Liam said my name and I came back. We laughed during my promises. I cried during his. The room was full of people who chose me. At sunset, we cut the cake, lemon and honey, 2 simple tears. That's when my phone vibrated. Mom's text, "Call me immediately." Then the cascade, "Mom, Jenna." The landline, "Mom again." An uncle I barely knew. By the time we finished our first dance, 32 missed calls glowed on the screen. I turned the phone face down and kissed my husband. Whatever emergency they'd invented could wait until after the dancing. I listened to the voicemails near midnight, still in half my wedding makeup, Liam beside me on the bed. The first message came at 4 o'clock, Mom's voice bright and brittle. "Nora, call me back the second you get this. It's important." 20 minutes later, less bright. "Honey, where are you? We really need you." By the 5th voicemail, her voice had gone high and thin, the sound I've only heard in hospital hallways when a plan is falling apart. Then Jenna, tearful and furious, "I don't know what you did, but you ruined everything. Call Mom." I sat there in my wedding dress, and I felt the strangest mix of worry, the old pull to run toward the crisis, and something new, curiosity, because I had a fairly good idea what had happened at that party. And for the first time in my life, I didn't move. I pieced together the story over the next few days from a cousin's texts and one long rambling voicemail Dad left. Picture it. Jenna's engagement brunch in the backyard of the farm. Rented string lights. 60 guests with plastic flutes. Around 4 o'clock, my mother stood on the porch steps, clinked a glass, and made a speech about family and legacy. Then, in front of Tyler's parents and everyone, she announced they were gifting the farm the house. The land, my grandfather's land, to Jenna and Tyler as a wedding present. Free and clear. The guests applauded. Tyler's mother teared up. And then Tyler's father, a careful man who reads things before he signs them, asked just to be sure whether the property was truly free and clear. My mother beamed and said of course it was. Except, it wasn't. Someone with a phone pulled up county records. And within 90 seconds the lien in my name surfaced. The daughter they'd all skipped, the daughter not invited to the party, held a legal claim on the land. My mother's beautiful gift had my signature at the bottom. And it couldn't be given away without paying back $85,000 plus interest. Monday morning, before I called anyone back, I went to the county recorder's office. Mr. Gerald Finch, a kind man, in his 60s with reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, pulled the file. The lien was properly recorded, properly secured. I got 2 calls this weekend, he said. Your mother and a gentleman, Tyler's father, asking me to explain the encumbrance. I told them the truth, it's public record. I asked if my parents could undo it without me. He shook his head. Not without your signature releasing it. The lien is yours to enforce or release. I drove away knowing exactly where I stood, which is a rare and steadying feeling. Before the inevitable family meeting, Jenna showed up at my apartment, her first visit ever. She was pacing, caught between fury and panic. Tyler's family was questioning everything. She said, "Why is there a lien? Who does that to their own family?" I could have been cruel, but instead I told her the truth plainly. 3 years ago, the bank was about to take the farm. Dad was in the EQ. I emptied my savings $73,000 and took out a loan for $12,000 more to save it. I did it on paper so it couldn't be borrowed against or given away without the debt being honored. She stopped pacing. $85,000? She whispered. You never said anything. No, I said. I didn't. She sat down on the edge of my couch, and for the first time in years, my sister looked at me like a person instead of an appliance. My father called later. His voice was weak, but clear. I knew about the lien, he said. I signed it. I let your mother stand up at that party and give away your house because it was easier than telling her the truth. I've been a coward since the heart attack. Maybe before. His voice cracked. Every time I look at you, I see the girl who saved us. And I'm ashamed I needed saving. It was easier to look at Jenna. She never saw me weak. I felt my eyes sting. I told him I wouldn't sign a release to hand the farm to Jenna, but I offered a fair path forward. He didn't argue. The summons came on Friday. A family meeting Sunday afternoon at the farmhouse. Mom made sure Tyler's parents would be there, plus aunts, uncles, and audience. She wanted to pressure me into signing. I spent Saturday photocopying the promissory note, the lien, and I tucked in my grandfather's letter, though I wasn't sure I'd read it aloud. Sunday, I drove out to the farm. The living room was arranged like a tribunal. Mom sat center on the couch. Dad beside her, smaller than I remembered. Jenna perched on the arm. Tyler stood by the window with his arms crossed, and his parents sat stiffly in the good chairs. Aunts and uncles ringed the walls, teacups in hand. The grandfather clock ticked into the silence. Mom began before I'd even sat down, voice rehearsed. Nora is holding a legal claim over our family home, a claim she filed secretly, and she's refusing to release it so her sister can have a wedding gift. We gave her everything, and this is how she repays us. She dabbed at her eye, and the room's gaze pressed on me like a weight. I let the silence stretch one more tick. Then I said, "You're right, Mom. Honesty is best." I walked to the coffee table and placed my envelope down. I pulled out the papers. 3 years ago, the bank sent a foreclosure notice on this farm. The amount to save it was $85,000. Dad was in the EQ. I emptied my entire savings, every dollar, from double shifts, and took a loan to pay it. I did it on paper because I overheard you planning to refinance this farm for Jenna's future. So I recorded a lien. Both of you signed it. I held up the promissory note with their signatures. You may have forgotten. The county didn't. I looked at Tyler's father. You asked Mr. Finch about the lien. It's real, it's mine, and it's public record. I didn't hide it. My family simply chose not to remember. My mother shot up off the couch, her wounded softness gone. How dare you humiliate us in our own home? You ungrateful, calculating girl, you did this to punish your sister. I didn't raise my voice. I'm not punishing anyone, Mom. I'm just done pretending the paper doesn't say what it says. A cousin murmured from the corner. She's the one who actually showed up. The words landed like a struck bell, turning Mom's own phrase inside out. Tyler's father stood quietly and asked Tyler to step outside. Jenna watched them go, her face coming apart. Then I offered a way forward. I'm not taking the house, but I'm also not signing away $85,000. Get the farm independently appraised. Let's put everything on the table, what it's worth, what I'm owed, and what's fair. If Jenna and Tyler want a future here, build it with everyone's name on the paper, in the open. No more speeches, no more surprises, just the truth, written down. My father met my eyes and nodded slowly. My mother said nothing. I gathered my papers, walked out through the kitchen where I'd done homework as a girl, and drove away down the gravel road. For the first time in my life in that house, I was the one leaving while they stayed behind to sit with what they'd done. In the weeks after, Jenna and Tyler postponed the wedding. His family wanted transparency, and I don't blame them. Jenna was angry for a while. Then one day she called, not in a panic, just to talk. Did you really work double shifts for years to build that savings? She asked. I said yes. She was quiet. Then she said, I'm sorry, I never really knew you. Not an apology for skipping my wedding, something bigger. We're not close. Maybe we never will be, but we're honest now, which is more than we ever were. The farm was appraised by an independent firm. With Ellen Park and Mr. Finch at the table, we sat down and put the real numbers in the real light. My parents agreed to refinance, pay back what I was owed with interest, and document the farm's future with both daughters' names visible. Jenna's start, if she still wants it, will be built on paper anyone can read, not on a gift that erased her sister. My mother and I talk less now, and our conversations are smaller and truer. She's never apologized, not directly, and I've made peace with the fact that she may never fully understand. But she no longer calls only when something is broken. That's not nothing. My father visits our apartment every couple of weeks. He sits at the kitchen table, Liam pours him coffee, and he tells stories about my grandfather. I let him, because I finally understand that his distance was never about loving me less. It was about his own shame at needing me. Becca sent a long apology text a month later. I read it twice. I haven't written back yet. Maybe I will. But I've learned you can love someone for 19 years and still notice the day they showed you where you rank. As for me, I'm a married woman now. I kept the wedding photos, including the one of the 4 empty chairs. I don't find it sad anymore, I find it clarifying. Those chairs told me the truth my family spent 30 years talking around. The cake was delicious. The barn was full of people who chose me, and I think about that more than I think about who didn't come. The reliable daughter spent her whole life believing that if she carried enough weight, she'd finally be seen. She was wrong. She didn't need to be the headline. She needed to set the suitcase down. Being the one who holds everything together doesn't mean you owe anyone your silence. And it never meant you owed them the right to forget what you carried. If your family only calls when they need something, you are allowed to stop answering. And you are allowed to let the truth speak louder than the apology you'll never get. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with someone who's always been the reliable one. Subscribe to Tranquil Drama Stories for more stories where the quiet ones finally get the last word.